Well, today is Monday, the 27th of July, and I am greatly honored, truly honored to welcome to our channel a person whose voice we wanted you to hear because it is a different voice, and it is a respected voice, and it has a different, and she has a different perspective on everything that we have been speaking with about. And her name is Sabrina. You have seen her, you have probably heard from her in terms of the YouTube channel that is very popular that she hosts, but she is now going to be a regular contributor to our channel every Monday, 5:30 Eastern, and we will bring you her voice to the entire audience that we have, which is global. And thank you very much for your support. We are among the highest ranking channel now, even though we are only 6 weeks or less than 6 weeks old. And with us today is Sabrina. I welcome you, and the floor is yours. Please go ahead, and you are welcome to discuss whatever it is that you think our audience needs to hear about.
So the big thing that's happening right now in terms of Iran is that now it seems as though this may have escalated to a completely new level, and that is because Ukraine has gotten involved. So I'm not sure if everyone has heard, but Zelensky did confirm that Ukraine did strike an Iranian vessel in the Caspian Sea. This is a direct violation, obviously. Zelensky is doing a number of interviews. He did one recently with Laura Loomer, who is a quote unquote influencer here in the United States, very much embedded in the Trump administration, has direct access, and is also one of the reporters in the Pentagon. Zelensky is saying now, on record, that Iran is going to attack Ukraine. Now, obviously, I don't believe this, but this is pushing things, in my opinion, into the direction of World War III. Currently, right now, Ukraine is still fighting the war with Russia, which they are not winning, and that war's been going on for years. All of a sudden, Ukraine just happens to have the firepower to attack an Iranian vessel. And I just want everyone to understand that when those ships are going through, whether it's the Red Sea, the Strait of Hormuz, or the Caspian Sea, these ships are identifiable. Zelensky is using the premise of what he believes Iran might do, not based on something that Iran has done. Iran has not attacked Ukraine. But what I believe is going to happen is that they are trying to push Iran to respond. Luckily, Iran has not. They've decided not to do so. They did issue a statement saying that this is a direct violation, and obviously that, we take this very seriously. Do not do this again. But what happens if Zelensky does choose to attack an Iranian vessel again? It seems as though, to me, they're trying to get Iran to fire back at Ukraine. And if people are wondering why they may want to do that, well, I'd say obviously to get more support, Ukraine to get more support, to get some of the other NATO countries to come in and defend Ukraine. And here's where I think we're going to run into problems in the United States with this narrative. The majority of Americans, according to the poll right now, it shows that they are not in support of the Iran war. That's across the board, regardless of political party. This is really bad for the Trump administration. The majority of Americans do not support Israel right now. However, the majority of Americans do still support Ukraine. And if Zelensky continues to push or to try to strike another Iranian ship and Iran does respond, which I hope they don't, but if they do respond, I really do feel like this could be the way the Trump administration might try to get Americans to come out and support this war. And again, it just goes back to the fact that a lot of Americans still do support Ukraine. A lot of them have not heard the other side of it, the Russia side. Many of them believe that Russia just went in and just attacked Ukraine and that Ukraine is being held hostage by Russia. Many of them don't know about the Minsk Accords. They don't know about the NATO coup in 2014. And so I think this is where we may run into some issues when it comes to corporate media and the narrative that they push here in the West. There was one sailor who was on that Iranian vessel who was killed. So Iran is being really restrained right now by not responding to Ukraine. But Zelensky is doing interviews right now telling people that Iran is going to attack Ukraine and also North Korea is going to attack Ukraine. And that's why many of us are asking, is this going to escalate to a World War III?
Well, Sabrina, that is a very, very useful bit of information that our audience and the world at large needs to hear about, because otherwise, what all they hear is corporate media, and all they hear is propaganda. All they hear is what the oligarchy wants everybody to know, which is the reason why we created this channel, and which is the reason why we invited you here. That is an extraordinarily important piece of news that we had not previously covered, and I'm so glad that you did cover this. And just before the show started, I discussed with you the fact that we were privileged to hear from people inside Tehran that the present supreme leader has obtained uh, not a fatwa because he doesn't need one, but a concurrence from a very respected uh, personality in the Shiite religion, the sect of Islam, Ayatollah Sistani, that he does not have to honor his father's legacy by honoring the father's fatwa, which is not to develop nuclear weapons. And what he was told, based on information we know that we believe is reliable, is that to protect your people, to protect the lives of people whose lives are entrusted in your hands, you can, in fact, proceed and develop nuclear weapons. And God forbid, the push comes to shove, you can even use them. Now, he has not said that he's going to use any nuclear weapons, and in fact, he has maintained a very, very deliberate ambiguity about that, saying that, well, if push comes to shove, if our existence is threatened, we will do whatever it is that we need to do. So, for Ukraine to push Iran at this stage, where Iran is clearly winning the war against the United States, I have no idea how that makes any sense.
Right. I know it really doesn't. I know that, Zelensky has asked before to join NATO. That request has not been honored. I think that's ultimately his goal, but I also think that might be the goal of the United States government as well. But ultimately, if Ukraine is attacked, I could see other NATO allies like Germany and the UK choosing to get involved here to protect or help Ukraine. I also think it's important that people know that Zelensky has been sending Ukrainian soldiers to Israel to help them, excuse me, to help them fight against Iran, which is interesting considering that they actually don't have enough soldiers that they need in Ukraine. That's why they've been, conscripting people off the streets and telling them to go fight. I think the average age of the soldier now is like in their 40s. They're just running out of people to fight in this war. But they were able to find people to send to Israel to help attack Iran. So I think what I want really a lot of people in the West to understand, because again, like I said, a lot of people in the West still support Ukraine. Zelensky is very much aligned with Israel. He is very friendly with Benjamin Netanyahu. In fact, it was just reported on Monday that Donald Trump is going to be having a meeting with Netanyahu and with Zelensky. So the talk here is about, as Trump said, Eurasia, which is interesting for him to be using that term all of a sudden. But that's what the talk is supposed to be about. I am very much concerned about Netanyahu coming here. He's going to be in DC at the White House on Tuesday. And he's also apparently going to go to the UN in New York. So, for those who are not aware, there's been a lot of pushback against Netanyahu coming into New York. The new mayor of New York City, Zoran Mandami, has made it very clear that he wanted to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he came into New York. Unfortunately, legally, the law doesn't permit a mayor to arrest a leader of a country that is coming to the UN, even one that has a warrant out for their arrest. So pay very close attention to what happens in the US this week, because I think this is going to be a really tense time. I can imagine there's going to be many protesters if, when he comes to DC, but also if he does go to New York to try to speak to the UN. Netanyahu stated that he is coming here also to thank Trump for agreeing to the NDAA. So, this is the piece of legislation that just went through Congress. It passed in the House. Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna, these representatives in the House, were very vocal against it and were warning people we cannot pass this legislation. What that legislation does is that it basically merges the US military and technology with Israel's. So it goes from the House to the Senate. They already have the votes in the Senate. I don't even have to look at it to know because of who takes money from the pro Israel lobby. They already have those votes. But this is very scary time for us here in the US. The majority of Americans do not want this merger to happen with Israel. And I think many of us kind of feel like we're just helpless at this point in time. But we are seeing things escalate to a level that even I couldn't have predicted with this relationship that the US has with the state of Israel.
Well, Sabrina, earlier you mentioned that this war in Iran is not popular. I am old enough to remember the protests against the Vietnam War, Sabrina. I was a student here in California, undergraduate, going through all the protests that were taking place at that time. And you may have read about that in history books. They were massive, massive protests. And that war was not popular. But you may not be aware of the following fact. Even during the time when Americans were being evacuated by an American helicopter off a rooftop, the war the war against Vietnam was more popular than the war against Iran, which means the Iran war is actually even less popular than that point of time when the US was fighting a very unpopular war in Vietnam. So this war is not popular. Not only is this war not popular, but the US has actually run out of smart ammunition. They have no more smart bombs. They have no ability to make guided bombs simply because the rare earth that is required to achieve that level of guidance comes from China. And of course, China is not interested in providing that to the United States right now. So even though Pakistan is the face of the mediation, China, being Pakistan's greatest patron, is the one holding the cards. So Trump basically is trapped. He is trapped with his own rhetoric. He's trapped with his own recklessness. He had an MOU. He could have just simply implemented that, but of course, he is incapable of doing anything that he promises to do, and so he had to spend many more billions of dollars, kill many more thousands of people, destroy what was left of the U.S. bases, and there is actually nothing left there now, and to start this escalation. So hopefully the escalation has now come to an end. Hopefully Trump understands that there is no way out for him. But with Netanyahu coming here, I mean that hope is not resting on too many solid planks.
It's true. And Donald Trump is not taking the advice of the generals that are close to him, the ones that are left, because they did fire about 11 of them. And one of the generals recently, it was just reported that he told Donald Trump that you're not going to be able to win this war and you need to get out. Um, Trump is being very stubborn about this. Pete Hegseth is going along with this as well. And I don't think people understand the number of casualties that have happened when it comes to the American soldiers in the Middle East. The numbers have been drastically underreported. They are just now telling people that there's been over 600 casualties of U.S. service members in the Middle East, and Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth are trying to keep that number under 20. So a number of people have either been killed or injured, and they're just not telling the American people the truth about that. The other issue that we have as well is, number one, we don't have a draft, of course, anymore in the United States. Military recruitment is not what it used to be. A lot of the younger kids in the US are not willing to join the military because the Gen Z generation in particular, they tend to be more anti-war, and they're just not willing to sign up to obviously kill people abroad. So we have a number of issues. We have the weapons issue, which Iran actually, I think the number's now at 43. They've been able to demolish 43 planes and drones of the United States. We have a weapons issue, and we also have a military recruitment issue. So it really does not look good for the US, but also the West. The UK has had their hand in this as well. They've been kind of quiet about it, but there have also been, weapons that have been fired off from the UK towards Iran as well. The US has been utilizing them too. But this is something that Donald Trump should have never gotten America or the world into. And I think a big part of this has to do with ego. And another part of it has to do with these promises that he made to Benjamin Netanyahu and, of course, to one of his top donors, which is Miriam Adelson. There's no way that the U.S. is going to win this war against Iran. And that's why Donald Trump has been pressing some of the other NATO allies to join in and to try to help here. But even if they join in, it's just, I could only see a matter of time before Russia or China may have to get involved to help Iran. So this is dangerous times and dangerous territory. The best thing that the president can do at this point in time is to go back to the negotiating table and agree to Iran's terms, because we have, to your point, we don't have the cards. Agree to Iran's terms, take a step back, and just walk away from this completely. We're talking about a country that just lost an entire school of little girls because the US, and it was our weapon, the Tomahawk weapon, the US bombed that school. I would say, considering that the US has been bombing, the Manab school, and also according to Max Blumenthal's reporting there on the ground, they've also been bombing residential buildings as well, killing all these civilians. I would say Iran has actually been somewhat restrained.
You're completely correct about saying that. And let us also point out to our audience that Moshtaba Khamenei, the present supreme leader, who is the son of Ali Khamenei, the leader who was killed by Israel and the United States together, lost his wife and lost his young daughter in this raid that was done by the United States on the compound where they were living. So the president supreme leader, has personal members of his family, the wife and the kid, killed, and he himself has been injured. I mean, he's recovering now. So he is very restrained. I would not be so restrained if I was in his position. And to top all of that, the cries that came from the 4 million strong funeral ceremonies was revenge, not not negotiations, revenge, repeatedly. I mean, 4 million people. Nobody in the world, in the history of the world, has seen 4 million people show up for a funeral ceremony, and that is the country of Iran. So they are united. They are determined that they are not going to allow the United States to take a reprieve and come back and strike them again. So the situation on the ground right now, Sabrina, is this: all U.S. bases that were being used to attack Iran. I mean, this is significant. All of them are non-functional right now. The United States cannot use them. There are no radars. We reported that on this channel the last time we were here with my two other colleagues, Pepe and Larry, that the United States is blind. No radars. So they were flying, radars up in the air on their Poseidons. So that is the state of the United States in terms of military preparedness. So for the Americans to go back in again, I have no clue how they're going to do that. I just really don't understand that. And maybe you do, but I don't. If they go back, they're going to escalate. But the real trump card is being held by Mustafa Khamenei. He can go nuclear any minute. The ability of the United States to diminish Iran's capability in the nuclear field has been zero. I mean, I want to repeat that, zero. All the bombing has accomplished nothing. That uranium is buried so far down a mountain that no amount of bombing is going to affect that. Iran has been accelerating all of that. This is our reporting, exclusive reporting. Iran has been accelerating all of that. Mustafa has said, well, prepare yourself, but I will make the final decision. The Majlis has unanimously said, we want you to have this capability. So they are the ones holding the card. Trump has no cards.
Yeah. I think it's important as well for people to know that Donald Trump initially thought going into this that the Iranian people were divided. And so the way it was explained to him by Pete Hegseth and a couple of others close to him was that if they were to overthrow Ayatollah Khamenei, then that would cause this unrest in Iran and there would be regime change, that the people would rise up and they would say, okay, let's let the West come in and implement their puppet, the person that they want there. I think he thought that this was going to go pretty smoothly the way that Venezuela did when they came in and they kidnapped Nicolas Maduro, not realizing just how big Iran is and just how many people actually live in Iran, and that Iran has been preparing for this day for a long time because they knew at some point the US and Israel were going to try to attack because Iran is part of the resistance. Ultimately, what ended up happening was that they killed Ayatollah Khamenei only to then in turn cause the people to come together even stronger. So when that funeral procession happened, one of the statements that Donald Trump gave was that he was confused because he was told that they didn't like Ayatollah Khamenei. That was false. So people have been feeding him incorrect information. And so I think Trump was rather embarrassed to see all the people that were at that funeral. And then also, let's mention all the other countries that appeared to that funeral as well. Like China sent delegation, Saudi Arabia sent delegation. Like they all came together to show that this is someone that they actually did admire and appreciate. And that was an embarrassment for the United States government. Now, Trump will never tell you that, but from what people were saying on the ground, that was an absolute embarrassment because people were told the exact opposite. Every other overthrow that he has tried to make happen has failed. He tried to arm the Kurds to come in and go against the Iranian people and cause some type of unrest. Didn't happen. Now they're talking about trying to get Syrians to arm them and to have them go in and do the same thing. Uh, doesn't really seem to be happening. Nothing is going the way that he was told that it was going to go. And by assassinating Ayatollah Khamenei, that basically paved the way, of course, for his son. And his son is not as reserved as Ayatollah Khamenei was. So the US government was basically better off keeping Ayatollah Khamenei right there where he was, because like I said, he was a little bit more restrained. Like he was a little bit more willing to, well, let's see and hear them out and hear what they say. His son is from a different generation and he is not as reserved as his father was. Big mistake from the Trump administration, assuming that the Iranian people despised Ayatollah Khamenei. Huge miscalculation. And there's no coming back from this. There's a reason still why now the majority of Americans are against this. And I remember when they were showing the funeral procession here in Western corporate media, the commentators were just so shocked about the number of people that were out there in the streets. They could not believe it because they've been, listening to the lies that have been told about Iran. So Donald Trump is in a no-win situation. The only way that he comes out of this is to walk away from this war and to just say that's it. We're not going to do anything else. There's also some hypocrisy here that has now been put on the table because now he's in talks with Saudi Arabia to allow them to enrich uranium, to allow them to have some type of nuclear capability. And so people, even some people who voted for Donald Trump, they're seeing the hypocrisy and they're saying, but I thought you said Iran couldn't have a nuclear weapon, but now you're saying it's okay for Saudi Arabia to have one. I mean, people are starting to see the lies that Donald Trump has been feeding them. And that leads me to the Red Sea. Saudi Arabia is not having a good week. Ansar Allah has been striking. They struck two ships from Saudi Arabia. And more importantly, that oil refinery, Aramco, that is a big deal. That facility transfers oil to China, Japan, and of course, the United States. And I saw all of the videos. That was an enormous attack. Even if right now, because we know that the US has stopped firing for now, even if they do reach some type of agreement going forward, which I'm not sure Iran is even willing to do at this point, and you can't blame them, you still have to deal with the issue of Ansar Allah now, because Saudi Arabia attacked the Sinai airport in Yemen, and that is why they're trading strikes back and forth. So they have just started a domino effect here. And we're dealing with the oil situation because of Hormuz, but now we're also dealing with the oil situation because of the Red Sea. So all of this could have been prevented if the US and Israel did not strike Iran.
Well, Sabrina, to make sure that our audience truly understands the magnitude of the disaster. Before all of this happened, the Strait of Hormuz was open. Ships were, going back and forth, no problem at all. Oil was flowing back and forth. Fertilizer was flowing. Helium that is so essential for manufacturing of chips, IC chips, was flowing, and now all of that has stopped, completely stopped. Nothing is flowing. This is what Trump accomplished by spending God knows how many hundreds of billions of dollars, killing thousands and thousands of people, destroying all of his bases. And now, if the Red Sea channel closes off, also there is no channel at all from which the Middle East oil comes here or anywhere else in the world. This is what this genius in the White House has accomplished, and all you get from him are vociferations. More bullshit, more nonsense, more talk, more threats. But thankfully, for the last day or two, he has just quieted down. So, do you think he'll stay quieted down?
I think just for a short time being, because this visit of Netanyahu, I'm sure the discussion is going to be how else can they attack Iran? There have been suggestions about ground troops, which would be a death mission for the United States. If they send in troops there on the ground, I'm sure Iran will be ready for them. Like, it's not even equal if you're talking about the amount of troops that they can send in and the weapon capability that Iran has. One of the things that I've noticed, some of these weapons that have been caught on video are very much advanced. Even the Trump administration said they didn't realize that Iran had weapons or ballistic missiles that moved as fast as they do. I have seen missiles on video that have changed direction at the very last minute before it even, got close to the ground to hit its target. So they're not prepared for that. But they're also trying to make the case that people may just have to die because it's important that they stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. They're willing to sacrifice American soldiers. They're willing to sacrifice, of course, obviously civilians that are in Iran. They really don't care. But this is a non-winnable war here. So then people ask, well, what's the point, right? So the point is not necessarily to win, and this is something that Julian Assange talked about before. The point is not to win. The point is to continue funneling money back to the military industrial complex in the United States, like these weapon manufacturers, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, for example. That's the whole, like, it's for profit. If there was no profit motive here, we wouldn't have any wars, I would say. So the goal is not necessarily to win, and I think many of us learned that from the Iraq war, right? Like all the people that were killed, and we were told it was because of weapons of mass destruction. So many different things that have happened over the years. The war in Afghanistan was a failure for the United States. So I don't know where people got this whole winnable idea from, but no, that's really ultimately not the goal. There are now calls to annihilate Iran. That would mean using a nuclear weapon. So they're even talking about just eliminating all the people, together. And I'm here to tell you, if that happens, if the US government uses a nuclear weapon in Iran, the world will never be the same. I think that'll be the day that even some of the NATO allies may turn against the United States.
Well, Sabrina, you said a lot just now, and because I have access to some information that I believe is not at all being reported in corporate media, even if they had it, they will not report it. And much of it is not being reported in independent media because they don't have the privileged access that we are so honored to have. Iran has prepared, you would be surprised, 1 million troops. 1 million. This is the regular army, this is the IRGC, and these are the reserves to meet any offensive capability of the United States with troops on the ground. They are ready. They are more than ready. In fact, many of their leaders would actually welcome that. I mean, not. I would not welcome that. I don't want to see anybody die for any reason. I would rather see people, resolve their issues on a negotiating table. But Iran is ready. So if Trump actually does that, which I hope that even in a diminished brain would he would understand is not a good idea. Uh, the disaster would be enormous, enormous. No troops are going to come back alive. Uh, they are that ready. Uh, I have some other information I would like to share with everybody now that you mentioned it. Iran possesses upwards of 15,000 very advanced missiles that are hypersonic, that change direction in mid-flight, and many of which have cluster munitions attached to them, which means that when they explode, it is not one bomb that goes off; it is like 100 bombs that go off. And Iran has not even used some of those yet. I mean, it has used some, but not very many. So why do you think that the United States, with this fleets of aircraft carriers, has not tried to traverse the Strait of Hormuz? Because the admirals know that if they go there, it's going to be a humiliation. So you are absolutely correct. Iran is not Venezuela. Iran is not Iraq. Iran has 90 million people. Trump's vulgar talk of eliminating the civilization would require Trump to detonate not one nuclear bomb, but maybe 100 nuclear bombs on Iran. And I do not believe that China or Russia is going to be standing by while the United States is engaged in that type of atrocity. So, in reality, my assessment and that of my colleagues here, and you are my colleague now, and I would welcome your assessment. He has no options other than to declare victory and leave, and that is what I'm told is going on in communication between Iran and the United States, via Pakistan, carrying messages back and forth, and that may happen unless Netanyahu, once again, gets him to do something very, very stupid. What do you think?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the best thing that he could do is just say, "We won, haha, let's walk away." I don't think a lot of people would believe that now because people have been watching more independent media that they know the U.S. hasn't won. They're seeing the videos just like I'm seeing them as well. The type of weapon capability that Iran has, but he really dug a hole for himself. The other problem that you run into is we mentioned the ground troops. Even by air, the US government has shown that they can't defeat Iran by air either. The number of times that these drones and these planes have been, these fighter jets have been shot down by Iran, there's no way of trying to beat them that way. So they know that the weapon, a lot of the, uranium and everything is deeply embedded into the ground and they can't get down there. And that's not something that they want to admit to the American people. They don't want to tell them, have a press conference and say, we actually can't do anything. The weapon's all the way down in the ground. And, you know, it's, he's trying to save face at this point in time. However, it makes me wonder because we are getting closer to the midterms here. That's happening this November. And then before you know it, I can't believe it. Before you know it, it's going to be 2028 and it'll be time for another presidential election. People pretty much know that running on this type of pro war message is not popular anymore in the United States. And there's a reason why other, presidents before Trump did not strike Iran. Doesn't mean they weren't thinking about it or didn't talk about it, but they knew it would be a total like failure. Um, this is starting to spark different conversations about what Americans actually want. And we can all look at the 2024 presidential election as a great example of that. The number of people that chose not to vote for Kamala Harris because she said she wouldn't withhold weapons from Israel. That's real. And so going into 2028, anyone that comes out talking like a neocon, like that's going to be a deal breaker. Now, to that point, Trump said that he was going to end these wars. And that's why some people voted for him because he said he was going to end the genocide in Gaza. He didn't call it genocide, but he said he was going to stop it. That's not happening. Israel is still killing Palestinians in Gaza. There's also a lot of violent settler activity happening right now in the West Bank. So no, he's just trying to put the Palestinian people in another cage. Also trying to build a U.S. military base right there outside of Gaza to just basically patrol and continue to occupy the Palestinians. So Donald Trump so far has basically, flipped on a lot of the promises that he ran on in 2024. That brings in the question about what comes next. So far, it looks it's going to be JD Vance or Marco Rubio or both of them that are going to run for office in 2024. On the Republican side, um, JD Vance is very much a puppet of Peter Thiel. He was created by him. Marco Rubio has been a neocon and has voted for every single war. So it's going to be interesting times. And I think that the Democrats, they're going to have someone who's completely anti war, or this could be the opportunity for someone to run as an independent or third party that has name recognition, that is known for being against these wars, that could really kind of break through. There are calls right now for Thomas Massey and possibly Ro Khanna to run for president or even run together on this message. I think people are looking for something a little bit different. But the one thing I've noticed, even just talking to people on the ground, is that the majority of Americans do not want these wars.
Well, I told you that this war is even less popular than the Vietnam War when Americans were being evacuated off a rooftop, Sabrina. And I actually was able to see that. I go back to those times as a student. So I cannot imagine this war being popular at all with anyone. Sabrina, I mean, I'll make a bold guess that, and on with this, I want your final comment before we wrap this up. Based on everything we have seen and based on everything we have even discussed as of right now, Trump may make a lot of noise, a lot of you know, vociferations. Uh, but this war is not going to end where the United States, comes out in any way a victor. And with that, all the bases are gone, all the capabilities are gone. The petrodollar is destroyed because Iran is not going to sell its oil in dollars. And when Iran doesn't do that, and the bases are all gone, none of those Gulf countries are going to, be wanting to support the dollar just to support the dollar, even though they have been, nothing but a vassal up to now. That is, the world is going to change. What do you think comes next?
We're looking at the possibility of a global disaster. Um, we have farmers right now in the United States that are feeling the crunch because they depend on fertilizer to grow their crops. And a lot of the fertilizer is made from crude oil, from some of that oil. So it impacts everybody. It's not just the increased prices at the gas station, right? Like that's the easy thing to spot, I think. But it's everything else. It's the trucks that use diesel to transport, food to the grocery stores or supplies to some of the other convenience stores. That costs money. So as the gasoline continues to increase, well, that means the cost of goods are also increasing. So that's a big problem. It was also just reported recently that the US dollar only has 30% of its purchasing power now for 2026. So this is we are seeing a declining empire of the United States, and all empires don't stay empires. Everybody eventually falls. And unfortunately, our government decided to put more money into wars instead of taking care of the American people. And that's how we got here.
Well, with $40 trillion in debt and no petrodollar, Sabrina, that end is going to come sooner than later. I
Mhm.
spent my life, I mean, my earlier life, working in the financial sector and developing, unfortunately, the structure that supported the petrodollar, which I regret and am not proud of right now. But that entire edifice is crumbling right now in front of our eyes. That entire edifice. So one of the reasons we started this channel is to bring to our audience this type of news, this type of informed analysis, intelligent analysis that you will not find in corporate media because corporate media is beholden to corporate interest. And a lot of the independent media just doesn't have the access that we are so honored to have. So, this is our first broadcast with Sabrina, and hopefully many more to come. Thank you so much, Sabrina. We are so honored to have you here and so much looking forward to more intelligent analysis from you. Uh, our audience, if you like what we do, please hit the subscribe button, please hit the like button. And if you want our briefing to be delivered inside your mailbox every week, please go to Substack and become a paid member for the small fee of $5 a month. Sabrina, would you like to say something in closing, please?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me on. Looking forward to doing more with you. And if you guys want to see my work, you can find me also on YouTube. My channel is Sabby Sabs.
Please go ahead and subscribe to Sabby Sabs. In fact, this is how we learned about Sabrina. We saw the great work that she was doing, and we're very pleased to extend to her the invitation and honored when she said yes. So please go ahead and subscribe to that as we welcome your subscription, to our transition protocol channel. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you very much. We shall see you I shall see you again here a week from now at our time, which is 5:30 Eastern. Thank you.
Thank you.